It's a little bit early, but hi there. Welcome, everybody. My name's Thane Kirby. Welcome to Talkback. And tonight we've got a very special guest. He's on screen right now. His name's Beck. He works for Odyssey. They, of course, deal with addiction and recovery, a great organisation. Also into peer support. Um, and I don't know what. Since I'm just reading off my cell phone, to be honest. And you work at the old prison, Primo prison, and the DTU, the drug treatment unit up there. Plus, you're a drum tutor, which is pretty cool as well. Beck, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Thane. Yeah, it's so happy to be here. I'm a little bit flustered running around, but other than that, I'm hunky dory. Happy to be here.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, I suppose we're going to take this hour or half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever you can give us, just to kind of break down all the good stuff that you do and what a normal day looks like. I mean, you do varied stuff, a lot of it in recovery. So talk to me about your work for Odyssey. What's your position
Sure.
there?
So yeah, Odyssey's I would say, sort of can be called an addiction services, but I tend to feel or view them as a recovery service. People looking to get into recovery from being an active addiction. So my history is, I've had some lived experience with drug and alcohol addiction. And along my journey, I sort of had a two-pronged recovery, giving up drugs, continuing in alcohol, using alcohol, but then struggling with that, but then really with a little bit of help, well, quite a lot of help actually, got into recovery, and so stopped using drugs and alcohol. And I had my sixth anniversary last week, actually last Thursday, and
Awesome.
thank you. And what sort of happened when I got into recovery in 2016, I started learning a bit about peer support and thinking, well, this looks really like something that I might go right into and suits me. So I'm just backtracking to give you a little bit of a picture here. In 2014, I had a friend commit suicide, and that actually sort of in some way led me to going to volunteer at Lifeline. And I started that in 2015, also got into with the law, had to go through a process, anger management. I started volunteering at Lifeline, got a conviction, and it sort of put me in another direction of I need to sort of change into a get into another more positive pathway in life and make some serious changes. So I was going to CADS as well in 2015, trying to make those changes, but not quite there yet. But I finally got there early 2016. I had a life coach at the time, Sandra Dixon. She wasn't really a life coach, but I said, you were my life coach. And fortunately, I just told her one day, I said, I really want to quit alcohol. And she told me to write it up on her whiteboard. And I didn't really know that you take your recovery date down and note it. So I put in my diary, went back to CADS for maintenance, abstinence maintenance, not using anymore. And took it from there, and then I found a peer support line at Lifeline called Warmline, and got really interested in that. And the qualification was lived experience, and also at the mental health end, I've got a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, and that sort of tied in there, as well as getting into recovery. And moving fast
How bad
forwarding.
do you have to be? How bad do you have to be to want to go into recovery, to put yourself into, like, what is bad? What needs recovery?
Well, I think if things are going wrong for you, and sometimes things go wrong for us, and we don't know what to do, and we keep doing the wrong things. But for me, I think it was a long time, a lot of attempts. But I was in 2014. I was in the police cells in Henderson on Christmas Day. Everything went to crap, and I've sort of identified that as a rock bottom turning point, because that's when I started. I didn't really want to do it, but I had to go to anger management. I was ordered by the courts. I wouldn't have done it by myself. But I also, rocked up to CADs out west, and but I hadn't quit drinking at that stage. I was just trying to reduce harm reduction and get some boundaries on it. Like I managed to stop drinking at home, but my history of drinking had been quite excessive. But yeah, I would
What did you drink?
say, oh, well, to be honest, I was a bit of a lightweight, but lots of beer and wine.
Right, okay.
um, you know, um, but yeah, had phases of beer to wine, really. But yeah, try and answer your question. I think it's just whenever you are at a point when you feel you need to change or make some changes, or inspired through things going wrong, to sometimes things going wrong can actually create the change in somebody. And also, I think it's really hard to do it by yourself. So getting support, the spiritual side of it, has been in there for me as well. And you sort of don't know what to do, but you just kind of have a
Yeah,
bit of faith. And it's a really good question. I mean, there's no right answer in terms of how far down the road to using you have to be or whatnot, but usually strong consequences are a good
yeah.
marker.
Oliver Finlay Smith says, I've been accessing mental health services and also working in many roles and think the peer support model is great for recovery. Can I just say, with somebody, do you have to have gone through recovery to be, in support or helping out with other people's recovery? Do you really need to know how bad it is, understand really what's going through your client's head, do you think?
It's a big help to have lived experience. It's really a qualification. So for here's the thing. So for when I interviewed for Odyssey,
Mm,
I had to talk about all the bad stuff. It's like um, it's the opposite of what you'd normally talk about in an interview. So
yeah,
how much trouble you've been into, what have you used,
and
but
that's it.
also, yeah, also recovery time. I learned that 2 years is kind of a industry marker to have
Right,
about 2 years recovery time.
okay.
It's not always like that, but for myself, it took me 4 years before I started applying for work in addictions. Actually,
Gotcha. And so Odyssey House was your first stop, was it? Or
not quite. No, I actually ran into, as well as being a drum tutor teacher, I do play music as well. So when COVID came along, I was splitting peer support work at Lifeline, teaching and playing gigs, and 2/3 of my work stopped. So that's where, well, actually, I was applying in July, so I was still a little short on work, but I was really determined during the COVID lockdown not to fall down. So that
mm,
meant pushing out there to look for work. And so I did actually pick up a role as a consumer advisor at the Bridge, who are under Salvation Army. So that was in the Auckland region. So, and there's 3 sites in Auckland, as well as a respite co-funded respite facility in South Auckland. So I did a few months there.
what about aftercare? Once you go through these things, I know someone who's gone through the retreat and it's,
Hmm.
you get your AA stuff together, you're going to meetings, you're trying your hardest. But what about when you have to leave these places?
Mm,
Um,
mm.
and then you've got to go out into the world and you've got to try and, you have a durry and a coffee and you go to the meeting in the outside world. And then sometimes you can get tripped up by other people in the AA who just come off, and then you kind of
Yep.
spiral out with somebody else. Do you think aftercare we're lacking in this country?
That's a good question, Thane, and I think we are a little short. I see Hayden Smith tuned in. He's actually an aftercare specialist. And incidentally, we were just having a little chat about this earlier. He was on George FM DJing a few years ago,
Right.
and
Awesome.
as Under the Wizard. I know Hayden because you've got it tattooed on your arm. It's pretty easy to work out. But yeah, Hayden's role in aftercare. So he's an aftercare practitioner at Odyssey. So he sees Whaiora or men in prison, and then he provides some continuity by taking groups, doing check-ins, whether it be by phone or Zoom, and he somebody like Hayden, he's in a it's probably a very strong person in that field. He chairs groups. I forget. He's probably going to be bummed at me, but I know he DJs for their New Year's Day gatherings, beach gatherings. But yeah, I think he would be a good one to check in with, because from what I'm seeing, there would be a need for more of that, and the continuity of support, things like accommodation, reintegration to the workplace. Guys got records. Accommodation can perhaps sabotage people getting out because people are using quite often in some of the sites.
And also maybe even partners, right, who really haven't, who could be still addicted.
Yep.
And trying to kind of contaminate the person going through it. Yeah, but you know what? Why do people? So, do you feel? Sorry, on a different question here. Can you replace one addiction with another? What I'm asking is,
Oh, good.
Drug and alcohol. I'm going to start selling real estate and try and make that money.
Thane, you got some good questions there. Totally correct. I mean, you can cross addict with different substances. So I think, I was in a lot of denial about my drinking after I quit other drugs. Somebody for myself, I think I got addicted to food when I stopped drinking.
Yeah.
What's some examples? Gambling, sex, shopping. I've also had a music consumption addiction. When I was younger, I was buying something every day for 6 months, and I used to get quite highly anxious if I hadn't bought anything. I mean, that's a weird thing, but it can be anything. It can be anything, really. And because we're basically, when we're quitting something that we use to cope, and something that's not necessarily a helpful or healthy thing, the void or the room space to fill, it can often be something that is another unhealthy thing. However, I think if you go about it and use a bit of intellect and get a bit of support, you can. One good way is to put that focus into an interest. For example, health and physical exercise is a good one. A lot of people start getting into going to the gym and exercising and whatnot. So
that's always a good thing.
Good, healthy one. Music's a good one. Creative things,
art, that type of stuff.
Totally. Dance.
Yeah.
Poetry, writing.
If we've got an elected MP or anyone, or we got anyone in the leadership in this country, either party, that had addiction issues and has come back and gone on to be an MP?
I think Chloe Swarbrick.
Right.
I was a little bit involved. I was a member of the Greens back in 2017. I seem to recall she got. Oh, of course. Well, there was Haley Holt. Although she wasn't elected, she did a damn fine job. But she came in where gosh, I can't even remember the previous Prime Minister's name, John Key, out in Helensville. I mean, she really blitzed it out there, but didn't get the vote. So, I'm pretty sure Chloe has gone through a bit of a journey, but I'm not that clued up in that department on who's who, to be honest.
Fair enough. I wonder, because we've got a real problem, haven't we? You know, like when I was looking back at the messages here, and Hayden Smith says, I thought I could never DJ without some type of substance, but then I learned that music itself is a bigger high. Now, I totally get that. And like being a working DJ, you always got to have a beer or something. Someone always buys you a shot, or you want to do a line of something and that type of stuff. So there are a lot of people who, even if you want to get off the wheel, there are a lot of people kind of like guiding you back in the name of fun. Yeah, we're having fun. This is absolutely cool. So for some, it's very hard to get out. And for others, you're being arrested all the time and your life is absolutely complete shit. And there's something has got to go on for you to go bam and have that incredible wake-up call where you actually want to change your life. We've got so many people in prison, though. You've got people in gangs, people selling a whole lot of stuff. How do we get on top of that? I mean, and a lot of it comes from addiction issues, right?
Yeah, totally. Another good question, Thane. You've done your homework. I think you sort of underneath all this, I'm sort of learning in my role is that trauma is under under the covers there, and how do we move forward? Yeah, there's obviously addiction is a big problem anywhere. It's big in New Zealand. The stats are high. I guess another thing around addiction is that there's a general percentage that around 6% of people who are successful in getting into recovery and stopping using. So it's not a high percentage, but when you think about it, 6 out of 100's not too bad, However, that I think that may be including only people who attempt to get into recovery. You can imagine how many people actually don't go there, haven't reached that point. But yeah, like you say, having a crisis point, it could be killing a friend in a car accident, a family member, marriage breakup, anything. Childhood trauma can be so impacting. It can just show up so much later in life. So yeah, it's a funny one with answers because we've got lots of sort of clinical research. We've got lots of ideas and around lived experience, and that seems to be, Odyssey, the organisation of Odyssey, is really putting that forward. We have our previous peer support. He was consumer advisor. Now he's lived experience leader, a guy called Dave Burnside, who's got a lot of lived experience, and he seems to be an absolute expert in the field, but he's also my supervisor, and he sort of said to me one day, it'd be great if we had a manual, a book that you can just follow through it and go through the instructions and work it all out, but there's no magic formula to it. It's like everybody's on their own journey.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. What about the legalization of drugs? Where do the people where do you guys stand with that? I mean, if we took it all out of the gangs, we put a tax on it, that tax could hopefully go to, like what you do with alcohol and smoking, a portion of that maybe go for people in recovery. Do you think that would be a sensible thing? People could still get their hands on them. If we legalized it, would that help?
Yeah, it's a tricky because so on the one hand you've got medicinal use in some areas, which I am a big supporter of. But I'm sort of have that dilemma. Like I get offered stuff quite a lot for medicinal. Try this,
Yes.
and I can't do it because I'm in recovery, and so I'm sort of mindful of I'm on another sort of journey. But I suppose if I had a health issue that would come along and there was some medicinal cannabis or whatnot that was out there that I could use that would be helpful, then I'd have a dilemma and maybe a change of direction. But to definitely, when you mention legalizing some drugs, actually back to Chloe Swarbrick, she talked about, she really campaigned for that. And, the reason to make it a medical problem issue rather than a legal problem. And so that would help people getting access to support rather than getting isolated and going to prison or having to go right to the bottom and rebuild from there. But the other thing on that subject is having alcohol legal seems to be, alcohol seems to be, it's the biggest sort of harmer because it's legal, it's socially acceptable. And, just in my sort of upbringing, it was quite confusing because I was around some quite serious use. And, it's sort of the dysfunction and the maybe what's not said is a bit confusing. So definitely talking about this stuff is great, opening up about it and having these discussions. We saw what the government's response was to pretty much shut it down. When was that? Was it the last election?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Thane?
So much harm. Well, I mean, alcohol, you can either handle your alcohol, you can't, or you can pretend you can handle it, but you can't. And I think, there's so much, it's so widely accepted. And, we've got bars, we've got hospitality that kind of really need it to be selling it. I mean, that's how they make their money. And so it is a real tough one. But, I mean, anyone can get in trouble. Really, it is like going out in Piha and not swimming between, going out with your jeans on and not swimming in the flags, Anyone can be pulled under and their life can change if they go down a couple of rabbit holes, and it can start with new friends, like you say, trauma, bad relationships. And it's just it's surrendering, isn't it? I reckon the word is giving in and just going hands up. I really need, and that is the toughest thing to do.
It's so you're right. It's so weird because it took me quite a long time to go, oh shit, I've got a problem and I need help. And that seems to be what it is. I don't know why we all kind of resist it so much, but there was something I was going to go back to what you're saying there. No, forgotten where you were there.
Oh, but also you need good role models because we've got Oliver comes in with you need good role models, but also you need the role models not to be scripted by some weird ad agency where at the end of the day people make fun of the ads because it's just not realistic. I want to see more realistic messages when it comes to this type of stuff on screen and on radio and online with real people with real issues talking about them. Without coming like, let's give the latest, coolest All Black, tip him some money, throw some money at him, and he can just say some catchy line with a small inspirational speech. I just think we've got to be past that. And I think our problem is so bad in this country with all kinds of addiction that, we need a whole lot, excuse me, we need it to be a little bit more raw, like the whole drink drive campaigns,
100%.
Yeah, so I mean, those are my thoughts on it. And what about the gangs? And I hate to go so publicly on gangs. Excuse me. It's not COVID, everybody. I was going to. But gangs control. Like, I feel the gangs get away with a lot of stuff in this country, and they can get into prisons and they can manipulate that system. They get around things and make it work. Very smart operators. But surely we haven't had a government take any gang to account right now, and things keep on getting through the system now. And it's tough talking about it publicly because obviously I don't want to be. I don't want my head smashed in. But gangs have got this. They've all hired PR people now, telling the world, "Hey, tattoo parlors and tow trucks, and we're giving back." But still, I don't know. It seems like they're funneling. I don't know. Still, it just something is not right about it, and no one's doing anything about it. And I think they have got to really, truly, genuinely own their part in this weird, crazy ride of addiction, in this country. And if only they could find another source of income other than the hard stuff. It'd be great if they changed business models or something just to give everybody a 2-year break. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think just from what we see in the environment, I'm going back to work tomorrow, so hopefully the board, hopefully everything's. I got to watch what I say, but
of course.
Just from what I've seen, and up until this role that I've got now, working in a prison environment, my sort of experience with gangs is to go and play gigs in gang pads and whatnot, and it's a different kind of thing because you're treated very nicely. But I did actually have a musician friend who's one of his mates got out of gangs and is doing very, very well. So there are role models out there. There are men who they're on the wrong path. But there was a New Zealand film called Savage. I don't know if you saw that one a few years ago, Thane, and it was based on New Zealand gang history and sort of more around bottom of the North Island. I think it's sort of Porirua, somewhere around there, based on historical, slightly moved across the goalposts there, but it's sort of what I liked about that film. It sort of showed how tough it was to get out of gangs, because there's a whole lot of consequences, and reasons for getting it.
I totally understand that. But what never gets said is the majority of gangs' income. Everyone's allowed to make an income, and everyone's a business person, and everyone's got a hustle, comes from drugs, feeding this country drugs. Now, if we all agree that that's the case, just tax them. You get caught, okay, you do some time, but shouldn't we just have a gang tax where the government takes 2% and these guys are just going to go about their business or something? Because it seems like they get caught, they get their assets taken off them, and anybody they know gets all their money and houses gone, and then the government gives them funding for $2-3 million, like, and here, take your assets back again. I mean, it's not everything. I just think we should just kind of like find creative ways of living. If we're all living with this, then let's find creative ways of making it work for everybody. I mean, like I say, I'm in support. I understand the gangs, and I have a lot of respect for business people. They are doing it, and there's chemists out there, and there's distribution, and there's transport and logistics, and there's all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's somebody writing out schedules of where to be and how all of that. Someone's handling cash. There's bankers, there's accountants, there's lawyers, there's PR people. Let's just call it what it is. You guys have got a company and a huge setup like Main Freight. Let's just tax the gangs. I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I mean, it's one of those ones where it's a bit of it's the whole kind of system really. Like what's the police response? What's the government's? What's the relationship between the three?
Yeah.
It's all a bit of an entanglement. That something could be done better.
Yeah.
Totally.
No one really knows, though, do they? Like the spooky
No.
scenario is no one knows. Everyone knows everything, but no one knows publicly the relationship
Mm,
between police, government, and gangs. And
mm,
hey, in all respect to the gangs, they ain't saying anything. They don't want to spoil a good thing.
mm,
Oh well,
mm.
next. But anyway,
There, there,
that's my
yeah,
drive.
no, that's a really good point. I mean, I just wanted to add on to that. There's a chap out there, Brendan Warren, who has the anti-P meth ministry, and
Mm,
he's doing a lot of good things. He's come out of gang culture, and so his bid out there. We're actually hoping to get him in as a guest speaker into the prison at some stage.
brilliant.
And he's been on TV talking about his journey. So he's a good example of one of those guys that you want to see in those ads,
Yeah.
talking about how far he's come or what he's done and where he's at. He's doing things on a bit of a shoestring budget. He bought a bus, goes around the country. And he keeps it very real. His challenges. So
How much? How
um,
much? You know how you got Mike King and depression and stuff. How
mhm.
much depression is in the addiction community? I mean, like
um, yeah,
where's the
cool.
crossover there?
I would say it crosses right over because I remember doing a gig about it was, I think just before I got into recovery actually, and
Mm,
a musician was about I sort of was saying, oh look, I've got mental health and other addictions and alcohol, and he said to me, oh they go hand in hand, and I should have clicked, but do definitely see that because I mean if you're using heavily, you're going to have impacts on your brain, and they're not positive impacts. Your mind as well,
mm.
physically as well. So things aren't that you're sort of putting all these reasons into your body. So your health is not optimal. And from my experience, they do go hand in hand, and I think they should be treated together in recovery. Because most likely why people are used to a high level, there's some sort of trauma going on. There's something's happened. It's not all party stuff. Um, there is social use, but when it gets to those higher levels of use where it's a real problem and things are going wrong, there must be something underneath. And yeah, definitely mental health should be addressed alongside, I believe, in both sectors, in the mental health sector as well.
What do they call those people that can really function really well on drugs and alcohol?
High
They're,
functioning, high
yeah.
functioning
Are they still a 60,
addicts.
60 story? Are they still a thing?
um, well, the funny thing about high functioning addicts is when you go behind the scenes, you see some stuff that's not very good.
Right.
And
Yeah.
but it's all a bit of a mask really when somebody can because they might be very high functioning and keeping their job or you know keeping a family going or whatever, but there'll be some aspect of their life that is the pits, and that's probably the bit that they're in denial about. And so
I
but
know a mum and dad.
mm,
I know a mum and dad who, they cope with the rigors of being parents and making money, and they're just normal people. And the kids that get dropped them off at school and their uniforms, the car's broken down. They have all the same pressures as you and I, but they have a little bit of meth on the weekends,
mm,
and it makes it all go away.
mm,
And they haven't gone backwards that I know of, and they haven't gone forwards they've just got this little thing as if it was, bourbon or weed. And would you call that, is that high functioning? It's just people who can just kind of like keep it, in thirst without
Moderate
going
use,
to.
yeah, and
Yeah.
using it a bit of a coping tool, a bit of coping
Mm.
strategy. I don't know. My one area for me is looking at musicians and seeing lack of creative growth when they're while using,
Mm.
or while where it might not appear to be a major problem, but maybe some other areas like I guess that sort of musical journey of always learning and getting better. Sometimes I see that where it doesn't seem to the progression and the development seems to stop. I guess that's in with addictions too, is that if you've got a serious problem, that's where your sort of development and maturity kind of stops. I know I sort of got counseled about being about 20 years behind in my age, my
Yeah.
mental maturity.
Yeah.
I've had that a few times, just bluntly told to me, working out, use point, recovery point, etc. But yeah, that sort of use, I do see that quite a lot actually. It's pretty, the way people just use a little bit here and there. But I thought it's a bit of an indicator that there's something going on there that's not going so well for them, something in their lives. But coping in life is hard with everything that we've got going on. So and addictions, drugs and alcohol, just seem to be such a common um, thing that people access when they're going through any sort of problem. It just seems to be right up there.
Mm. So it's like people not asking for help, which just overlaps in depression. And me finding out in the last 2, 3 years that anything can stimulate somebody committing suicide. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
there's a problem they can't solve that just gets too big that they feel just ending the game is a lot easier than actually having to deal with all these issues
mm,
and not
mm,
asking for that kind of help and people not picking up on it. Very,
mm,
they seem very strong. So yeah, there's a lot going out in here, isn't there? There's so much going on with people at the moment.
mm,
It's
mm.
nuts.
Well, this the COVID era, create. I guess there's been the isolation. With these lockdowns, there's been business loss. That we've had the mandates, and so if you don't play ball with being vaccinated, you lose your job. A lot of people, and freedom of choice. It's not a one size fits all. We've seen that with vaccination rates that maybe about 10% of the country have chosen not to. So, um, the all these things, the social distancing, the masks, all this, the COVID culture that's come in, has created a lot. We saw in Auckland, high suicide rates, domestic violence. I had a few interactions with the police and heard a few stories, as well as doing some helpline work. And people, I would say, it's just not having the coping skills when you put under these pressures. People are used to having some, whatever it may be. Traveling was probably a big one. Being able to go out, interact with everybody, family members, all those sort of things. And when that
Can I
suddenly
ask, like,
stops,
how are the police with people with addictions? Are they like a big piece of shit, or are they actually genuinely frontline supporting, or they just don't want to bloody deal with it? It's easy to lock them up overnight than
mm,
having to kind of like deal with this drunk or out of it person.
mm, um, yeah, I think that. Well, yeah, I don't quite know the exact answer to that, but I think the police do n- deal with a lot of those sort of problems, and I think they do well to they have a lot of dignity in their work. I've sort of been on that end a couple of times, and I've been treated mostly with respect. But some of my behaviour's been really out of control. But yeah, generally from what I hear, that it's thing that yeah, it's not quite an answer I have, but I would say the police do their best to respond in the right manner.
Yeah.
Depends on how much somebody is misbehaving, really.
Yeah.
Um,
What about a person with addiction? How do you set them up for going on holiday? Okay, MIQ, they've got rid of it. Everyone's going to head to Aussie, go to Bondi Beach, Sydney for a shopping weekend. How do you set someone up with addiction issues when you're in another country? You almost feel like you're a different person.
Totally, yeah. No, that yeah, it's just you get put under those situations in those contexts, and you have to be very strong, I guess, to
Mm,
stay on track. But yeah, get back to what I was saying. I think from what we've had with these lockdowns and the limitations that people have had, I think it just comes down to maybe also not having those tougher things to navigate, and a propensity to access drugs and alcohol. Yep, definitely. There's been people that have gone back to using or escalated their using. It's just
mm,
having that support out there. I remember when we went into the synchronized global lockdown, that things like NA and AA meetings. I don't think they had Zoom meetings up and running initially. They may have, but I don't think so. And I was thinking, shit, what about all the people that are really dependent on those meetings? Some people
yeah,
go to onwards of 2-3 meetings a day, 7
yeah.
days a week. Have that all that support taken away from them, the stress levels will just go through the roof. Yeah, so I do know quite a few who fell down during that first lockdown.
When you're kind of white knuckling and you need to be hanging out with that support network, and yeah, it's not there. And I mean, there's only so much you can do on Zoom, right?
That's
And so,
right. I mean, it doesn't beat face to face.
mm,
It's great to have. It's a great technology to have, but it's a quite diminished to actually connection with people that actually in a room, or having a coffee with somebody and trying to get a little bit of support. It's just it's interesting that I'm pretty sure those meetings just weren't there initially, and I just really felt terrible about that. I was thinking, like, shit,
mm,
all the people that really access those meetings, and it's part of their recovery, just need us to adapt and take it to the next level, I suppose, of
you
be
also remember we went
receptive.
through that first lockdown. There were a lot of guns, and there were weird chases, and there were domestic violence
Mm,
everywhere. We had the real crime spree going on. Was that people coming down,
mm.
or just like they, they couldn't get hold of their dealer, or it was just I don't know what was going on. It was weird.
A little bit of all of the above,
All of
probably.
them.
I
Yeah,
think people just acting, people
yeah,
acting weird, people losing it. Uh, yeah, yeah. I guess it's your everyday routine, what you do, and if you're doing things where that are just that'll.
mm,
I mean, my little thing of playing music for a while. That even this last lockdown we had in Auckland, I think I was in bed the first 2 days. I didn't anticipate it. That I was like, oh shit, now there's no work for a while, and I got quite down. It took me a couple of days to get out of bed, just on lack of music work for a while.
mm. You kind of snap out of it. Snap out of it, Mike. Come
Yeah,
on.
so I better get out of bed and face the music, the non-music, I suppose. But
Yeah,
yeah, I guess the recovery thing is to be adaptive, keep finding new ideas, new options, keep being creative in your approach, keep growing, keep learning. Don't be a know-it-all. Like, don't just be the naive inquirer and keep getting information. Everybody's a teacher. You can learn off
yeah,
everybody. And what I've found too, I've been amazed at people that maybe aren't in the field, or you would maybe assume that aren't in the field, and they just pull out some good chops, So people, the human qualities can come out in times of need. That's for sure.
Absolutely. What about someone who wants to surrender tonight and kind of go, got an issue, need to really talk to someone about it? What is their first stop? What do they do after this?
Pick up the phone to God. Yeah. Well,
What do you call it?
initially,
Is there any helplines or what?
yep, totally. There's the drug and alcohol helpline. Perhaps Selena can just
Yeah.
put that up on the screen. That'd be great. I know Thane has promoted that helpline. He's been in advertisements. I think, to be honest, I have my cards and I give them away. So I know Tane was on the card that I had. So there's a drug and alcohol helpline. Actually just like linking up, getting support, whatever you can do. I mean, there's a lot of helplines in New Zealand. There's Lifeline has got multiple lines. There's Home Care. I've forgotten what their banner name is, but they've got multiple lines. I think they have a drug and alcohol helpline as well. But if you Google, I suppose, if you've got access to the internet, Googling support in your area, and what I would say is, if things are open the next day, access those community supports, be whatever it is in your area. There's Odyssey around the country. There's the Bridge as well. The NA and the AA community are probably the strongest options out in the community. So linking up with them, just rocking up to a meeting, getting onto that and getting a sponsor.
Are meetings intimidating? Are they embarrassing? I mean, what do you do?
To be honest, yeah. I mean, the first meeting I went to, actually, my friend who's not with us anymore said to me, "Oh, if you don't think you're an alcoholic, whether you do or don't think you are, just say you are." And I got to my first meeting and I really couldn't get the words out. And I guess that was guilt and shame and maybe a denial thrown as maybe I'm not. But I was really surprised. I just couldn't get the words out. I was just really embarrassed. And I guess, we've got a little project in our unit at the moment to actually bring in some NA meetings. I think chair them fortnightly, just to demystify them. So get the guys used to what is a meeting and what does it look like. What goes on in it? What do you share? Getting some confidence around sharing, and then accessing meetings when you get out. Definitely, I would say that NA and AA community are probably the most valuable community service available in New Zealand.
Oh, that's good. And because it's like Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever, they're not going to go and say, "Oh, I just saw that guy from he was in the meeting." It's shame and we can't really name banning about, right? There's got to be a safe place, is it?
Yeah. I mean that's a little thing about this this chat is that I was thinking today, around confidentiality and breaching things in that area, keeping things quite tight, and names and whatnot, what went on in groups, what somebody said, when I guess breaking trust is a big concern, when people go in and they talk, basically spill out their life, and if it gets back that suddenly all that went out in the community, that's absolutely not a good thing, and it's going to be really off-putting for somebody. So I guess having that high professional level of confidentiality, I mean, I'm still a nipper and learning with that stuff. I mean, it's just even just doing this show with you, Thane, is, because the mindfulness was there today. It's like, shoot, I've got to make sure that I don't say things that I shouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I respect that. Well, thank you very much, mate. It's been a real pleasure talking to you tonight, Mike, and we'd like to have you on, any other further developments or what have you, whatever we can help you push. If you think there's anything that in that community that needs to get the word out, then I'd love to have you on again and have just a nice, relaxed chat. Thank you for answering all my questions.
Love it. Thanks, Thane. And that could be a little bit of a networking thing as well.
Yeah.
Bring somebody
absolutely.
else from the community in. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. So let's try and work on that. Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Take care.
Thanks, mate. See you soon. I'd like to bring in our fact checker. He's been sitting on the sidelines, and I apologise. The format of the show has changed a little bit tonight, but let's go and get his comments. Benny Mack, good evening.
Thane.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Oh, intriguing show, mate. Intriguing show. I've learned a lot, and I think we all have. And coming to terms with our weaknesses and understanding our strengths of who we are, living that authentic experience. Huge opportunities to be had for one and all. And if you do need that support, there is a link in the chat.
Absolutely, mate. I really appreciate your time. Hey, I'm just going to park you there for a split second, and I wonder if we can bring in Selenya now. She has got some news. We're going to do a little bit of news. Are we running late for it? Selenya, what do you got for us tonight?
Yeah, before we do the news, I just wanted to just throw a little bit of support Mike's way, because he and Thane, you actually you said a great question and you triggered a lot of solutions. So with addiction, you mentioned, like, do you replace it with something else, like sport, being creative, getting involved in community, and just filling your time with something else you actually think less about what you're addicted to. So it just
Yeah, good interview. Cats, you can fill it with cats.
Yeah, so amazing. That was really, I think that was one of the most groundbreaking interviews so far. Yep. So I'm going to be back in 1 minute, like with the news.
Okay, fantastic, no problem. Yep. Thank you. Hey, so we are going to be, we should have Bomber Bradbury on the show on Wednesday, everybody. It's our first time with Bomber. Obviously, Bomber is now a big political force to be reckoned with the number 2 political podcast in the country. So, very happy. The internet is made of cats, absolutely. But let's bring back Benny Mack, fact checker. Benny, looking good.
Thank you so much. This is actually Benny Mack's brother, Aladdin. I thought I would stop by the show momentarily to say drugs are bad, kids. Do not do drugs. However, some have amazing medicinal qualities. However, be responsible. Do not operate heavy machinery. Make sure that you do not drink and drive, ladies and gentlemen. Keep it safe. Know your limits. And if you are experiencing pain or discomfort or any sort of problems, don't be afraid to seek help.
I got to say, your pupils are quite large there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They are totally dilated. I was hanging out with my kitten earlier in the show, and she gave me a little catnip. But I can tell you, I'm feeling just fine.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Aladdin. I really appreciate your time tonight. Let's now go to, we got the news all set up. We're ready to go, Selenya, just to give us a quick pump up with the latest happening in the country. And then we'll just call it a night, everyone. And, of course, you can listen back to this on Spotify and Apple Music and a couple of other little bits and pieces online. So that's a great opportunity. So if you don't want to see the pictures, you can definitely listen, which is very good. Oh,
and if you're one of those, I love you, Thane Kirby. And if you're one of those fortunate people that is rolling in cash, absolutely rich, remember, send your money now. We know what to spend it on. A whole lot of everything. We're going to upgrade the studio. We're going to buy cameras, a tripod. We're going to get a light. We're going to do it large. We need your cash money. Send it now.
Thank you very much, Aladdin. Perfect. Let's welcome back Selena with the news. What have you got there, Selena?
Okay. Hold on a sec. This is just so fun. Okay, so sorry, I'm just having a technical difficulty.
You know what? We could leave the news to tomorrow. I think we'll just
I
end the
think
show
so.
now. I think we've done very well,
I'm
everybody.
just so overwhelmed with the story and Mike's story, and
Yeah, you seem to be.
you know, sometimes news doesn't matter. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, you know, it's there, and it's gonna.
Just one way of us jarring you into the show, basically.
Yeah, and
it
the
doesn't
news
need
is going to be more news tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. That's
So,
the good
yeah,
thing
I
about
think
news,
it's
isn't it?
Just totally buzzing on seeing Aladdin and like my favorite character of all the time, and yeah, I think it's just.
You know what was
Big
amazing
fan.
that I heard about your Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern? She doesn't got the COVID. She doesn't even have the damn Omicron. That's 100% right.
Clear.
And you know what I said? She didn't legalize the Quran, so they were going to try and give her the Quran.
Wow.
But no one gets the Quran, apparently. I don't know. But
well, thanks, Aladdin. Anyway, I'm going to piss off now and go and do some shit. So thanks, everybody. Have a lovely evening, and we're back tomorrow from 9 o'clock live. And remember, you can be part of the show by sending messages or click on the link and being one of our guests. From all of us here at Talkback, have a fantastic evening. Good night, everyone.
I waited 45 minutes.